Well done, Mr. Hooper, of inspiring us to action. So, questions from the floor?
Oh, heavy. So thank you, Mr. Hooper. This is it's a great summary that you pulled together of starting with the sort of the impetus for your project in your travels last year, all the research you put together on the sort of how plastics have really changed the world in the last 100 years. It's shocking to think of, life 150 years ago when plastics weren't around. And also making it very local. So I think that, those were to me, it wove the story together really well. So I think that's an excellent kind of, again, summary of the whole issue. The question I want to start with is, how do you change behavior in sort of the public and they respond to, their day-to-day lives? We've read and heard about, the ban on drinking straws, but we know this is a tiny percentage of the plastic pollution we see. We rarely see straws actually in beaches around Bowen, just as one example. And specifically, I wondered, what do you think? What's your opinion on these large international organizations like For Plastic or the Ocean Cleanup in their ability to change day-to-day behavior? Do they make us maybe more complacent about, that someone else is going to clean it up for us, and so we don't have to worry about what we consume and where that material goes? So, what's your opinion on that?
I think some of the organizations are much better than others. So the three that I touched on, the last one was the Ocean Cleanup Organization, and I think that one's the best because
Plastic Ocean?
Yeah. Because it inspires people to start taking action, and it gives you tips on how to do that. And I think that's what really people need to be, is inspired. Whereas other ones, it's like For Ocean, are good. They're still educating people, but the only way that you can really help with that is to give them money for them to remove 1 pound of plastic, which is still important. But I feel like you're kind of right about that, as it kind of shifts to the individual going, oh, someone else is cleaning up after me. So I really think that some of the organizations are much better than others. But people just need to be inspired to clean up and stop using the plastics as the main problem.
Great.
So congratulations, Mr. Hooper. That was a really fascinating presentation, and I guess I should get rid of my gum. Into ocean plastics. I have maybe 2 questions for you. One of our design projects this year, our final one actually, was inspired by your Masterworks. So what are some alternatives to plastic in terms of straws and plastic cups and takeaway containers?
So for plastic cups especially, the plastics that are made out of plants are a little bit better, but they're still not perfect. So they can be made out of corn mainly, and there's new ones being made out of the oil from cactuses, which is really cool. And that one's actually a bit better than the corn ones. So that's good for plastic cups. For straws, there's paper straws, which are still not perfect because it takes a lot of energy to produce paper straws, and there still is a waste factor from them. And same with plastic or the takeout containers. It's mostly just paper is what I found from that project, but most of it's wax paper, and some are very thick, so those take a lot longer to degrade. So the best ones are just the thin paper, but they're still not perfect for sure.
And I see that you brought in some bags here that ironically are in plastic. But can you maybe show us some of the things that you found in your beach cleanups?
Yep. Okay, so this one.
Sure.
So these plastics are mostly from Cape Roger Curtis, and this is the float inside of boats, mainly in most dinghies and smaller boats because it's quite a bit lighter. This is the glue that is sometime on the plastic containers that are underneath docks. They spray it with this because they think that it doesn't split into individual pieces easier, but it is they still do split quite a bit. And just normal styrofoam, it's all from the floats from the docks. There are a few thinner ones that you can see. I think, yeah, I have one right here. So this one's quite a bit thinner, so this would be from a takeout container or something like that. And the other ones in here is a needle. So there's some crazy things that you'll find on beaches. Glass bottle, empties, and actually there's quite a bit of tape too, because people just tape stuff on the side of the roads, I guess. And this one has a rope in it, and there's tons of ropes. Ropes are a major problem because they're mainly made out of plastics, and they do not degrade quickly at all. And other than that, in this one, there is this yellow thing, which is probably from the side of a boat or in someone's driveway, because it looks like an address. And in this one, there's these black pieces of foam here are pipe insulation. So there's not as much of that, but it's still a major problem because it's pretty similar to styrofoam, but it releases even more chemicals. And this right here is from a, I guess it's from a float, like a buoy, something that someone ties their boat up to, or the prawn traps or crab traps. This is what floats them. And if these get lost, it's really hard. It's almost like a rock, and this takes a really, really long time to degrade.
Thanks. So what do you think about regulation versus sort of voluntary approaches? If you think of how policy is often defined, it's either regulation meaning laws or rules or government penalties, or more voluntary stewardship, encouraging people to change behavior. And do you think that we need to be stronger in regulation around marine plastics? Things like the styrofoam sources and docks that there's a slow transition obviously to new technology, but do you think there should be more rules to retrofit older docks?
So, I mean, ideally, individual people should be able to be smart enough and notice that we have a big problem and do those changes on their own, but lots of people don't. So I do think that it's good that the government is now stepping in to enforce, and I think that there should be a lot more laws and stuff, specifically in BC for docks and styrofoam, because that is our main problem. So locally, I think that the provincial and municipal government should apply more laws, and especially plastic straws are the biggest one around the world probably. And I mean, this year in Florida, they passed a law to ban the banning of plastic straws. So some governments are going the other way, but hopefully some go the right way, and it's looking like it's more starting to. So I do think that the governments will need to step in and make those changes. So individual people have to follow them.
So basically you're saying it's a mix, but you think there should be a bit more emphasis on it?
Yeah, it's definitely a mix. Some people already do it, and that's great. There's lots of people that voluntarily make those changes, and that's perfect. That's what we need. But still, lots of people are not doing it. So that's where the government needs to come in. So it is a mix, yeah.
And to follow up on that, what do you think of the role of the Bowen Island municipality? They have challenges because they don't control the marine waters surrounding Bowen Island. That's a provincial jurisdiction. But how do you think the municipality should respond to marine plastics?
So I think that they should especially be cleaning up the roadways a lot more. Like the ditches on the side of the road on Bowen actually have a lot of plastics in them. So there are volunteers that go out and do that, but I do think that they should get someone to go do that, because that is a main problem, because as soon as it rains in the winter, all those plastics run out into the ocean. And other than that, I mean, we don't have a lot of docks on Bowen. We still have quite a few compared to the rest of the world. But again, just like if governments do start to provide rebates, I think that's the best way that will get people to switch over to using the new floats. So I think they should try to do that, is try to use the rebates and try to enforce that, and just hopefully there will be laws that it's illegal to use the styrofoam floats.
It's kind of disappointing they wouldn't provide a bin to receive marine plastics, because that's, what do you do with that stuff? You can be a volunteer and pick it off the beach. But if
Exactly.
you can't find a garbage place to drop it off, so.
So that's actually another thing, is what, I think it was your idea actually, where you had it somewhere, you saw somewhere, it might have been Hawaii, where they had a bin at the beach entrance where they had garbage bags where you could go clean up plastics and then could leave them back there, and someone from the municipality would come drive by and pick them up. So I think that would actually be a really good thing for Bowen, is if we had boxes at all the beach access points throughout the whole island, and there was plastic bags, or ideally not plastic bags, but something you
Yeah,
could,
at least recycled
yeah,
plastic bags.
yeah, something you could pick up the plastics from the beach in. That would be great. That would be something that I think is easy enough to do, and it would make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think it's a good example of sort of people that want to spend some time on beaches, and gives them something to do as well. The last question is, what was the weirdest thing you found in the cleanup? Or on beaches in general, maybe not just the cleanup.
We were looking through photos to use for my presentation, and I found one photo that I took in Indonesia, and there was some weird piece of plastic that we had no idea what it was. And I mean, other than that, what I actually found, probably a needle. That was really weird. I didn't expect to find a needle on the beach. There was a few lighters, but I guess that's normal enough. But there was cans of WD-40 and stuff that I guess wash in from boats out in the open ocean. But that was kind of weird to pick up a can of WD-40 on a beach.
No motorcycles like in Haida Gwaii a couple of years ago from the tsunami.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks very much. Did a great job.
Yeah.
Questions from the floor?
You mentioned a few different ways that some companies thought that you could do personally, like don't use gum. But what, in your opinion, would be the one that have the most impact?
So out of those 9, I was super surprised by the gum one, but I learned that every month or every 6 months is like 100,000 pounds of gum waste. So that's not just the gum, it's also the plastic wrap that the gum comes in and the paper container. So all that adds up to 100,000 tons of waste, which is a huge deal. So I think the best one is probably the plastic bags. I mean, that's a huge problem throughout the whole world, and they're just super unnecessary. Like the average lifespan of one is something like 5 minutes of use, and then it takes over 500 years to decompose. So I think plastic bags is the biggest deal.
Good job, Mr. Hooper. I have 2 questions for you. One is, all the garbage bags we use actually are plastic. Do you think somewhere in the future there might be a new way to stop those plastics from being put into the ocean as well?
So there's kind of what I answered to Charlotte is there's different types of plastics now. So there's even ones being made out of seaweed, which are better than just the ones made out of natural gas. But the garbage bags that we have today are made out of natural gas, and they're not really, it's a lot of irony that you're picking up plastic in plastic, but I think that there's definitely going to have to be ways that we can find to use different different solutions.
Okay, and my second question is, I find syringes quite a lot especially in Bowen Bay. Where do you think they come from?
Sorry, what?
I have found a few syringes at Bowen Bay.
Syringes.
Yeah, where do you think
Needles,
they come from?
Yeah. Probably the majority is someone went to the beach and had, used the needle. Other than that, I think that's just the main way that they get there.
Congratulations, Mr. Hooper. I really enjoyed your presentation. I think it's, surprise, I think it's very ironic that it was a year ago today that we were on the beach in Indonesia, and seeing this really experiencing it firsthand, I think was profound for you. And I think that when you were touching on inspiration, I think that people going out and doing the beach cleanups and seeing it firsthand for themselves, I think that's inspiration.
Yeah,
right?
for
To
sure.
realize, whoa, we really do have to deal with this. It's not someone else's problem. I heard on the radio just recently that there's an airport somewhere in Europe, and they're experimenting, I think it was Starbucks, they're experimenting with giving people coffee cups, reusable, not made from plastic coffee cups, and then being able to collect them before people get on the airplanes. Which I think is a wonderful idea, but it's only a pilot project for 1 month, so who knows if they'll actually be able to pick it up. Well, my question is, do you see a future? Do you see one day you looking back and saying to your kids, when I was a kid, we used plastics, and your kids will say, Dad, what's a plastic? Do you hope?
I do believe that. I mean, in 100 years, we've made this problem, so I think we could easily clean it up in 50, and in the last year, there's been tons of new inventions to prevent plastic waste, and there's a lot more alternatives coming out now. Still, none are perfect. None produce no waste, like even paper bags. It still takes energy to make the paper, but I feel that we will find something that will be perfect soon, hopefully.
Do you think things like plastic cups and plastic straws should become illegal in places like BC?
I think that's on the list for what the government is banning in 2021. Plastic straws are so unnecessary. There's lots of alternatives. You don't even need a straw to drink, but definitely straws should go, and they will go in this ban. They'll become illegal. And plastic cups, I mean, it's not that hard to carry around a reusable container to drink out of. So I think that they will go away pretty soon. And different types of plastic cups are becoming illegal in the next 2 years.
Good job, Mr. Hooper. But I have a question. What do you think is the best way to inspire people? Is it through film or writing or through photography or something like that?
I still think that the best one to inspire people is firsthand. So actually seeing it yourself and seeing the actual problems that we have. But after that, probably film. The one organization targets school children, and they go into schools and show videos of how bad it is. And the videos that are good ones, there's lots of inspiring videos, but I feel that they kind of are too heavy on the negative side of it. Like, look at the problem that we have, and they're not as much for hope. So I think that more videos need to be more hopeful and show that we have hope still.
Mr. Hooper, I think a good way to inspire people is have people like you stand up and tell us what's going on. Your presentation is actually terrifying, but also a wake-up call. Can you just confirm something, because I don't know if I got this right. You said that, what do you call it, the Pacific Garbage Patch? Did I hear you right, and you said it's twice the size of Texas? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so it's twice the size of Texas, and it's basically just because of the ocean currents, all the plastics accumulate in one specific area, and there's 5. They're called gyres. There's 5 gyres around the world, and the Pacific is, I think, the second biggest one, and it's pretty close to Hawaii, and it measures twice the size of Texas. I think it's 1.6 million square kilometers, and that's just all plastics together formed in an island, and they go down about a foot for the most part.
One quick question, personal question. You know, when you go to the general store, or some people go to the general store and buy salad in those clam bakey things, those plastic clam containers, those plastic containers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Are there any chance those are the good plastic or are they the bad plastic?
I don't really think there's no such thing as good plastic. There's some that are better than other, but still none are good plastics. So I think that it's okay, but it's still not that much better than most plastics.
I think that's a good place to end it right there. There's no such thing as good plastic, Ted. So it is now 10 to 12, and if I get a secret nod from the advisors, then I'll make an announcement. Just scooch over there. So I would like to announce before lunch here that Mr. River Hooper has indeed met all the requirements of the Masterworks program at Island City School.